Hi, today we're here to talk about the Seiko Prospex Divers 300, more commonly known as the Seiko Marinemaster 300 Pro Diver. This particular watch comes in with reference number SLA021J. There is a Japanese domestic market version of this exact same watch with reference number SBDX023. And this is the successor to the highly acclaimed SBDX017 Marinemaster. This comes with certain upgrades over the previous generation's model, and I'll explain that in a little bit. The main difference between this watch and the previous generation would be two things. The first is you will no longer see the Marinemaster text printed on the dial, and the second being the crystal. This comes in with a sapphire crystal versus the previous generation's hardlex crystal. Now, if you're a diver, you might prefer the hardlex crystal because you would tend to bang your watch against things. But if you're only looking for an everyday beater, then sapphire might be the way to go, as it is more easily manageable from a scratching perspective, since sapphire doesn't tend to scratch as easily as hardlex crystals do. I've owned this watch for over 18 months now, and I thought that after a year and a half of ownership, a proper review would be good to have to inform you of the pros and cons of this watch. The dimensions of this watch comes in with a diameter of 44.5 millimeters, a case thickness of 15 millimeters, so it is quite a thick watch, a lug-to-lug of 50 millimeters, and a lug width of 20 millimeters. The bezel is a ceramic insert that turns unidirectionally with 120 clicks. As I turn the bezel, you will hear the crisp and solid sound that it makes. Solidly built. And the markers align perfectly with the markers on the dial. Coming to the case finishing and the bracelet finishing, the case is finished in a highly polished fashion. The method of polishing that they use on this case is called the Zaratsu method. It is a method that's unique to certain specialists in Japan that are highly trained to do this type of polishing. And this polishing Seiko does normally on their Grand Seiko lines, and there's certain Presage lines as well. So it is pretty cool to have in a few Prospex lines such as this one. Coming to the bracelet is finished with a satin brush finish. However, I call your attention to the center links, to the edges of the center links. You will see that the edges of the center links are also highly polished, mirroring the Zaratsu finish on the case. The contrast that it provides is really nice, and the attention to detail on this is really outstanding. Talking about the clasp is quite nice. There's a Seiko stamp there, the logo. There's an extra layer of lock to open it. It's two push buttons to open the clasp, and you will see the micro adjustments here. In order to adjust this over a wetsuit, just lift the extra lock and it glides down accordingly. Okay. Very nice. Now coming to the dial of this watch. The dial is matte black with applied hour markers that's coated with the Seiko's proprietary LumiBrite loom. There is a date window at the 3 o'clock, and there are gold accents on the second hand and the 300-meter text printed on the dial. There is also a crown at the 4 o'clock with the Prospex logo. Coming to the movement. The movement of this watch is a caliber 8L35 that beats at 4 Hertz. The specs are -10 to +15 per day. However, based on personal experience of this watch, the timekeeping does much better than -10 +15. And the power reserve is 50 hours. There are two things that I really like about this watch. The first one would be the dial shield coating. As you can see, this watch is still, looks immaculately clean and pristine. This is my most used and abused watch. So this has been with me when I go under the sea, when I go to the beach, when I swim in the pool, when I go up the mountains, and even halfway around the world. This watch has been with me for quite a while, and it has endured its fair share of abuse. However, if I decide to sell this watch, this can easily pass off as a watch in mint condition. And that's thanks to the dial shield coating. That's an extra layer of protection that's applied on the case and the bracelet that makes it more scratch and corrosion resistant. That's awesome. The second thing I really like about this watch is the monoblock case. The monoblock case is a case that doesn't have any screw back case back. So the case back is solid. So if the watchmaker wants to get to the movement, he or she would have to take off the crystal and the dial in order to get to the movement. So from a watchmaker's perspective, it's a little bit of a pain, but from a user and an aesthetic perspective, it provides the dial with so much depth. As you can see, if you take a look at the dial from different angles, you'll have really, really interesting micro views. It seems like there's so much space between the dial and the crystal, and that is a sight to behold. It's really, really nice. Makes this watch very unique. One thing that you should know about this watch is it is a big and hefty watch. I'll show you a wrist shot with this watch on my 7.25-inch wrist. Zoom out a little bit. So you can see that this watch is big. For those of you that have wrists that are a little bit smaller, this may be too much for you. However, if you have larger wrists and you can handle this watch will remind you every day that you are wearing it because of its heftiness and its weight. If you like the feeling of having a really robust and tough tool watch on the wrist and you can handle it with a bigger wrist, then I would highly recommend this watch. However, if you have skinnier or smaller wrists, I would think twice because you may not be able to handle the heft and the weight. I'll just give you a little wrist roll to end this video for your appreciation. And there you have it. This is the Seiko Marinemaster 300 SLA 021J review. I hope you liked it. Until the next time. Bye.